Well, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. This is Jim Heyman. I am the Director of Business Development for CGNA, and I want to say we appreciate you being on the call this afternoon. We have a brand new preferred vendor with CGNA, Pyure, and we've got a pretty strong lineup with the webinar this afternoon. So again, I want to say thank you, and I want to take just a moment here at the beginning to mention a few things. And then I'm going to turn it over to our presenters. Pardon me. I think most of you are familiar, if you've been on a call with us before, we do mute these calls to avoid distraction. It just makes for little clearer presentation. It also gives us a clearer recording. However, at the end of the call today, we're going to open up the lines. We're pretty sure you're going to have some questions about this product and what it's able to do and what they have. Some very new stuff here that you're going to find very interesting. So at the end, as long as we don't get put on hold music or some kind of distraction, we're going to make it live so you can voice your questions at the end, or you're always able to type them in the chat box, either one. A couple of other things I want to mention is during the presentation, our team from Pyure is going to be asking some poll questions. It's to help them get a better idea of what's going on with those who are attending the call, and so they'll be putting those up on the screen. It's just a quick answer that you can take care of real quickly. Also, if you notice on the right-hand side of your screen, there are 3 PDFs that are handouts. There's a lot of good literature and information here. So all 3 of those available. You can download those at any time. Just click on them and they will download to your computer. So some very good stuff there that's available. Lastly, I do want to mention, I touched on it, but emphasize it. We are recording this. So this webinar will be available on demand after today. So if there's someone at your company that wanted to be on the call or was not able to join us, or after seeing this, you're pretty convinced that there are other people in your company that definitely need to see about this product and company, it will be available recorded in on-demand format. So having said that, I would like to introduce our webinar this afternoon. The theme is an introduction to Pyure. We have 3 senior executives with us. Jeremy Peterson is their Senior VP of Sales, Marketing, and Strategy. Brent Vick is their VP of Sales, and Steve McAfee is their VP of Sales. So want to thank you all for joining us. And gentlemen, we want to thank you. Brent, I'll kind of hand the microphone off to you. Thanks for being with us.
All right, Tim, thank you, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining the session today. We really recognize how busy you are, and maybe there's even a little bit of webinar and Skype meeting fatigue. So the fact that you carved out an hour to join us is really impressive, and we appreciate it. So just a little more background on me. I've been with the Pyure Company now for about 3 months. Most of my career, about 30 plus years, were spent at Honeywell. In fact, I was in the Honeywell ECC business that you guys are largely familiar with. So I am reasonably familiar with a lot of the CGNA members. I look forward to learning more about you and your companies. But I do have some of the relationships from my past life at Honeywell. I led primarily our residential side of our business. So I was the sales director for North America on the residential side. And you might know Mike Keller, he was my counterpart on the commercial side. So as Jim said, the meeting purpose today is to formally introduce our company, the Pyure Company, and our technology and our products. Before we get into that, though, I want to just give a little background. And Jeremy will talk more about Pyure and the background on our company and some of the history there. But I just want to talk about where we are relative to the HVAC marketplace. So we're brand new. We're brand new to HVAC. And it's primarily because we haven't really made the attempt to get connected with HVAC and build a network of partners in HVAC. But a few months ago, we got together and we were sort of reviewing our go-to-market plans. And we recognized that the commercial HVAC channel really represents a tremendous opportunity for us and the partners that we connect with. So we really started exploring options in the HVAC channel back in June, July kind of timeframe. And about that time, we got connected with the Controls Group North America organization, primarily with Jim. And Jim was super patient with us and supportive as we went through the process of sort of evaluating and vetting Pyure as a potential preferred vendor for the CGNA network. That process went on for a couple of months, and there was a lot of really good conversations along the way. And again, Jim was really great in terms of sort of guiding us through this entire process. Ultimately, the Pyure Company was presented to the board of directors for review and approval. And we were approved as a preferred vendor in mid-September. And I think the announcement came out to the CGNA network maybe a week later or something like that. So for Pyure, this is a really big deal. We think there's tremendous opportunity in the commercial HVAC space, and partnering with the CGNA network to get our message and our products out to the end customers. So we are absolutely committed to making this a successful relationship with CGNA and all of the member companies. And we believe that there's an opportunity to expand profit for the member companies and for Pyure, and to work together to really provide your customers with the very best air purification solutions. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy here in a minute, but just a couple of last comments. I did take the time over the last week or two to learn a little bit about your businesses through your websites. Mostly I was just interested to see what you might be up to in the area of indoor air quality and what lines you're showing on your website. And there's a mixed bag, but certainly many of the CGNA members have indoor air quality products as part of their offering, whether it's purification or filtration or whatever it is. Many of you have some type of offering. What I think you're going to hear today is that the technology that we bring with Pyure is absolutely different than what you're familiar with in the portfolios that you carry now. And as part of that, we see a dramatically different level of performance. And you'll hear us talk about that as we go, but it's truly exceptional performance as it relates to purifying the indoor air, related to odors and mold and bacteria and VOCs and of course, COVID. So you're going to hear more about the technology and how it treats the air. You'll hear us talking about our testing methodology that validates the performance that we talk about. And the other thing that's important to be aware of, and you'll hear about this during the presentation, is that our offering is very much scalable. So you can use it in a very small space in an individual classroom or an individual room, and it can scale up to a full campus, commercial campus, school campus, with controls and sensing capability that you can link into a BMS system. So we think with the offering that we have, it fits very nicely with the CGNA network and your partner contractors. And as I say, we think there's really a terrific opportunity for all of us. So thank you again for taking the time to hear about Pyure and our technology and our products. And I certainly look forward to meeting you directly one-on-one as the relationship continues to build. So with that, Jeremy, I'll turn it over to you and you can introduce the Pyure Company in a little bit more detail.
Okay, thanks, Brent. Hi, everybody. Jeremy Peterson. Much like Brent, I spent quite a bit of my career at Honeywell in both the buildings and the homes businesses. But let's get talking about Pyure. So Pyure was founded really in 2007 as a formal organization called HGI at the time. And it's headquartered out of Boynton Beach, Florida, and we're domiciled as a company out of Delaware. We're PE-backed entity, but have manufacturing in multiple locations as well. So not only do we manufacture in Florida, but we have additional capacity set up in North Carolina, as well as in Mexico and Montreal. And so we are present outside of the US. We sell into other countries in Latin America, Europe, Middle East, and the Far East as well. But really, as Brent mentioned, this is an opportunity to grow a distribution network far larger and to bring our products to many more buildings. The history of the company is really far more into the janitorial sanitization market. And so historically, the products have been available and they're robust, they're solid, and are built on a long history, but just haven't had distribution outside of the northeast of the US, parts of Canada, and then other countries outside of the US. If you want to go ahead, Steve. So if you just take a little walk through history here about the technology behind Pyure and where it really came from. In the 80s, Leeds University in the UK was really trying to understand the problems behind acid rain. And what they really discovered in the course of studying acid rain was that there was a lot of coal dust going up into the air, and way more that was actually going up into the air than what was being returned to the earth in the form of acid rain. So found out through that process there was a chemical sink that was converting a lot of this coal dust and ensuring that it wasn't harming the environment as acid rain. And that's really when hydroxyl came forward as the kind of real chemical work that was being done on the coal dust to convert it into other compounds that weren't negatively impacting the environment. That was then picked up at Penn State by a guy who's part of a team at Penn State that's actually very influential in ASHRAE, and they studied a lot of hydroxyl's benefits in indoor environments at that time, but were really unable to replicate that at commercial scale to create a reproducible offering to really address the problem indoors until Guy Morneau came along. He was out of Calgary, and what he was really after was trying to protect his wife, who was picking up a load of hospital-borne infections over time as she suffered with cancer. And so he began studying how does UV work, and then how could I actually produce things that would treat the environment without the air actually flowing by it. And so he stumbled across hydroxyls and how to shape UV waves in order to ensure he was treating the virus and bacteria in the air and on the surfaces where people were actually living, breathing, working, etc. And so he then developed that technology between 98, 2006, and really refined how to optimize hydroxyl output in these machines, and then founded this organization in his basement 2007, and the company did $1 million of revenue in its first year. And from there, they moved it to Florida in 2019. As I mentioned, it was bought out by a private equity organization pre-COVID. The company is really founded and led by a CEO who comes out of a pharma background. He's brought companies public before, but his real foundational strengths are in the scientific research efficacy data that you would expect from somebody coming out of a pharma background. And so the CEO of Pyure is very much investing in efficacy data, transparency of data, ensuring that people understand what's happening in the air in their environment. And so you'll see us consistently basically highlight the research that we've done, its impact, and how it's different from most anything you've seen historically. Obviously, during COVID, the company grew exponentially. That continues till now as people are really trying to understand how to treat COVID. Ironically, some of the bigger transactions that we've done over the last year were when people tried to solve a COVID problem and then figured out all of the other applications for Pyure technology. So not only, as Brent mentioned, do we really take COVID out of the air and solve it on surfaces, but some of our bigger deals have been done because people understood the cost on their P&L of flu and having people ill or out of the office due to the medical costs of flu, as well as really understanding the odor abatement that we introduce and taking out some of the VOCs from the air as well. So a lot of applications for Pyure technology. Before we head on to handing it over to Steve here, now that you've learned a little bit about our business, I'm curious on the next poll question we'll introduce here and learning a bit about your business. I think that's the next slide, no? Here we go. So if you could see the quick poll here, we're interested in learning a bit more about you. If you could tell us what percentage of your revenue is IAQ related, whether that's air filtration, purification. Is it less than 5%, 5 to 10%, or should be more than 10%, sorry, on the question there. But trying to understand really how big of a business is this for you? Is it something that you're just getting into that we can really help you learn and understand the market and help you figure out how to sell it? Or are you well into this already and we need to help you understand how Pyure fits? All right, so with that, very many of you are in the less than 5% category if we've got that right. So what you'll see from us as a focus of Pyure is a healthy dose of training, technology, competitive environment awareness to enable you to be able to sell this effectively throughout your organization to your end markets. But in order to do that, you need to learn more about what we do and how we treat it. So with that, I'll hand it over to VP of Sales, Steve McAfee, to start to educate you on the technology.
All right, thank you for that, Jeremy. And as I was just introduced, I'm Steve McAfee, VP Sales here with Pyure. Perfect timing for my dog to start chiming in. In any case, wanted to give you all a very good and thorough introduction to the Pyure technology. And if I can get my screen to pop up here, I will drop off camera so you have a full screen view of what it is we do. 1 second. All right, so at the core of our technology and what we're looking to accomplish is eliminating pathogens from the environment. And that's not just COVID, that is basically every pathogen you can think of, common cold, flu, Salmonella, E. coli, all of those. We're very, very effective against all pathogens. But primarily, what we're able to do better than anyone else is address these within the treated space. So we're actually killing 99% of all harmful pathogens within the air within 20 minutes. And then, also within that same environment, we will address the surfaces as well. So again, within about 20 minutes, we get a 99% kill rate in the air, and after about an hour, we achieve a 99% kill rate. And this is based on both anecdotal evidence that we have from current deployment of our technology, as well as some very rigorous laboratory testing that takes a step beyond most, well, just about every competitor in this space. The technology is fast and effective, as is going to be demonstrated on this timeline. So just to kind of visualize those talking points that I just brought up, 20 minutes in, you have a 99% reduction in air. 60 minutes in, you're eliminating 99% of pathogens on surfaces, and we're using COVID data here just as a reference point. After 80 minutes, we can no longer detect the presence of the COVID-19 virus in the lab testing we performed, and after 3 hours, it was undetectable on surfaces. So in the real world environment, what this practically means is that if a meeting is held, the one that we're in, if we were all in person, and somebody were to bring this into the environment, not only are we going to actively treat against the presence of the virus as it's aerosolized into the space by a ill individual, but we're going to continue to constantly sanitize both the air and surfaces so that it doesn't present a risk for anybody who may enter that space after the fact. Just to demonstrate this and the explanation for it, we do have test data coming back from Innovative Bioanalysis, which is a BSL-3 laboratory based in California, where we were one of the first technologies to actually aerosolize live SARS-CoV-2 virus. And we did this, I think, at the tail end of 2020. So what you're seeing here is the performance curve of a variety of our portable devices. The purple line is the control, basically, how the virus will settle out of the air over time, without being acted upon, and, just basically settling onto surfaces. Whereas with our system present, you're getting very rapid degradation of the virus concentration. And to put it into, kind of realistic terms, what we aerosolized in there was, I think, 3.5 million copies of the virus, which is about 10 times that of the average human sneeze. So, if you take a full basketball game, everybody's on the court, and when they, jump for the ball, everybody sneezes at the same time. That's the level of concentration we took down in 20 minutes. So very, very, very effective. And similarly, we tested on surfaces. So within that laboratory environment, we placed our devices on one side of the room. It's basically a 20-foot container. And on the other side of the room, we had inoculated plates. And again, within an hour, we were destroying, both, everything in the air completely, almost completely gone. And then within an hour, we had 99% reduction on surfaces, which basically takes it to the point where it would no longer be transmittable. We did do this testing, like, as I say, in a large chamber, 1,270 cubic foot chamber. We used the real virus. We were not using a surrogate. We have extensive scientific data for all of our claims, whether it be SARS-CoV-2 or other pathogens. And this is all courtesy of a long-standing scientific basis of the company. We've been through peer-reviewed journals. We have medical registration with the FDA for our MDU-Rx, as well as ECDC registration in Europe for the MDU-Rx, as well as our induct unit, the IDU. And we have recently passed our CARB certification testing for deployment in California. That certification is still in process. We're waiting for the California Air Resources Board to actually receive and process our data, but we've passed the tests that were performed by Intertech.
Hey, Steve, before you jump to the next slide, can we introduce our next poll question?
Sure thing.
So the market for air purification and indoor air quality is quite large today, but equally, or maybe even more important, there is a lot of growth expected over the next 6 years or so. So we'd like you to take a shot at how large you think this market will be by 2027. Today, it's, well, as of 2019, it was 2.3 billion. Well, you got the answer right. The projection is that it's going to grow by about 19% compound annual growth rate through the next 6 years. So we wanted to put this question in because there is really tremendous opportunity for all of us as it relates to indoor air quality and air purification technology. Okay, Steve, back to you.
All right, thank you, Brent. So yeah, moving past our testing data and into a bit of how it works. Referencing back to what Jeremy was discussing, the process by which hydroxyls are formed in the natural environment is well studied and known. You can find papers from multiple universities, you can find them from NASA. A lot of very large and very reputable organizations have produced a lot of scientific material on this. However, the ability to produce this with our own technology is really what differentiates us from the rest of the crowd. And so what happens is Pyure is using multiple wavelength UVC to react with water vapor and form hydroxyls, which then combine with VOCs and produce organic oxidants. And I think the next slide is going to give us a animation of this, just to give you a better visualization. So as I said, Pyure is using multispectrum UVC light. As water vapor passes across that light, we're forming hydroxyls, so H2O becomes OH. We're doing this in a very high concentration. And those hydroxyls can react to destroy pathogens immediately, but they are also reacting with organic compounds or VOCs in the space to produce organic oxidants. And these organic oxidants then flow into the environment and start to react with other, bad things. So you're getting all pathogens. So you're hitting viruses, mold, bacteria, as well as additional VOCs in the space and odors of various types. But what this means at the end of the day is that you're getting a 99% reduction of just about everything in about a 30-minute timeline. How we differ from conventional UV though, again, we are multi-spectrum. So when you're looking at how UV would normally work, you irradiate the air and surfaces to basically impart that energy to bacteria and viruses, which in time will have an effect, but there's a number of limitations to that. So, within a treated environment, if you were to shine UV in a room, you can't do it when people are present. It's just not safe to do so. You also have to have a specified exposure time for a given pathogen. So some bacteria require 20, 30 seconds in order for the UV to be effective. And in the case of COVID, it's about 5 seconds of exposure. What that means in air handling systems is that your air is moving too fast for UV to have much of an impact on the air that you're trying to treat. So it's going to miss a lot of those, viruses in particular that'll just slip by. The way that we're different, again, we are forming hydroxyls using UV to sanitize the environment. So not only are we getting the effective UV within the space where we mount it, we're also forming these hydroxyls and organic oxidants that are going to flow throughout the entirety of the ductwork or throughout the room. And in time, you'll sanitize the entirety of the environment within the duct, the air that you're breathing, the surfaces you're touching, everything will be sanitized by our system in about a 20-minute timeline. And we do have a variety of solutions to meet whatever the need may be, from an individual cubicle up to 1 million square foot warehouse. We can size to either of those or beyond. So for what's most relevant, I think, for everybody on this call, we do have our custom solutions that are integrated with HVAC systems. So these will use, a controlled solution to kind of ramp our system up or down depending upon what our sensors are reading. We also have just standard permanent installations that can go plug into a duct. This is relevant for kind of small commercial offices, home residential use, those types of environments. We do have the FDA registered MDU-RX, and that can be deployed into patients' rooms even. I've seen this in deployment on oncology floors in children's hospitals as an example. And then we also have a consumer range of products that can treat individual rooms and even larger than that. When we're talking about the custom solutions, these will scale from anywhere treating about 2,000 square foot area up to, as I said, 1 million square foot plus, just depending upon what we need. The smallest unit we have, you see on the left there, the IDI, that's our kind of entry level, if you will, to the controlled solutions where we can actually monitor and maintain levels. From there, we ramp up to the MVP series, which the numbers designating 14, 24, and 48 are the number of optics that are in those devices. These all integrate into HVAC systems. In the case of the 24, that's meant as a rooftop unit. So it's fully weather resistant and can be just put up on the roof next to an air handler up top. And in the case of the 48, which is our most powerful unit, we can do a variety of things with that, ranging from, like I say, very large warehouses if you need to, sanitize a very, very large space or an arena of some sort, but also in industrial applications. Those have come in very handy for a number of our clients, and I'll kind of touch on a few of those later. Kind of hitting on this point again, but we are sanitizing everything in the HVAC system. So you're getting your filters, your coils, the ductwork itself, and the occupied space in one shot. So by putting us in, we're actually going to actively hunt down and destroy a large slew of problems. And whether that be COVID today, or if you're talking about a more persistent and significant problem that's been dealt with in the past, just the the flu. Everybody's been living with that for a very long time, and actually one of our clients used flu data as justification for acquiring our systems in mass. And this just gives you an indication of where the equipment can actually plug in. We can tie into return air, we can tie into the fresh air intake, we can go into the supply side. Really anywhere in the system will be able to plug in and still have a beneficial effect for the facility. And just going back to the scalability of this, we do have the ability to have single individual spaces with portable units, in duct solutions for entire buildings, and then jump from that into entire facilities across multiple buildings on a campus. So that's our kind of scalability piece of things. Now, as far as how the actual controls work, this will give you a bit of an indication of how we tie in with complicated, or with a BMS system. So effectively, an HVAC system is closed loop, right? You have supply and return air blending going out into or through the air handler into the ductwork, into the space, and then treating the space before it gets pulled back into return air or exhaust, and then comes back around and goes through. So when you introduce a controlled solution from Pyure, our system will tie into the ductwork, and it'll produce hydroxyls at a specified rate. That rate will then be monitored within the space by our oxygen sensors that we hang on the wall or in the ceiling, just somewhere out of the way, actively reading those levels. And so what happens is there's an inverse relationship between the concentration of our organic oxidants in comparison to contamination, whether that be odors, VOCs, viruses, on down the line. And when we ramp up, contamination drops off. But then as we ramp up, we don't want to ramp too high. So the sensors will read that, provide feedback to our controller, which will tell our system to slow things down a little bit. And then we are able to maintain, like I say, a specified rate, which keeps us in compliance with a number of different world regulatory agencies, whether it be World Health Organization, CARB, FDA, so on and so forth. So we are well within performance criteria for all of those, and are highly effective at eliminating all sorts of problems, even within those specified rates. The other piece of this is we can actually monitor and provide record keeping of what we're doing. So pulling that data back, doing data logging, you can get an idea of what your system's doing, and all of that can be integrated to the BMS, so that yourselves or your clients can see how we're responding to a given problem.
Hey, Steve, before you jump ahead, there is a question that came in that just popped up on my screen. It's a little bit tricky to read it, but I'm going to give it a try. The question is, can you please define weather resistant?
Yeah, sure. So in the instance of the MVP 24, the rooftop unit, I'm not exactly 100% on the IP rating of that, but I want to say it's like IP 54 or somewhere in that. It's basically watertight from any angle, as long as everything's been sealed up appropriately during installation. So yeah, it can sit out in the elements and happily take that on without any problem for the unit itself. In the case of our IDI, IDU, MVP 14, and some of our portables are more industrial ones, those actually have been rated with a formal IP rating by the American Bureau of Shipping for use on ships. And so they had to pass certain criteria in order to be deployed in a marine environment, and we passed with flying colors in that respect. So even for our units that are not outdoor rated, they are still robust enough to take a bit of splashing water, I think is basically how it was defined, without having any kind of problem.
All right, Steve, thank you. Lisa, if that didn't fully answer your question, please let me know. But let's go to another poll question. So you've all heard about the funds that have been set aside to help reopen our schools safely. There's two ESSER acts and a CARES Act, and there's money available. And the indoor air quality air purification technology qualifies for these funds. So we'd like you to take a shot. How much money is available to support this effort to reopen the schools safely? Good, you got that one right. So there's a lot of resources available for your customers to have access to cover the cost of their air quality upgrades. And I do know that some of our partners that we started working with in the CGNA network early on are already looking for opportunities to sort of tap into that. So I would encourage you to do the same, and we're happy to help you with that as you do. Okay, Steve, I'll turn it back to you.
Actually, well, I'm going to be handing this one back to Jeremy. So, Jeremy, you can discuss the partnership with Rockwell a bit.
Yep, no problem. Hi again, everybody. Pyure has recently signed a contract with Rockwell and PTC to connect our IDI and MVP families to the Rockwell PTC cloud. So within the next 60 days, so you guys are kind of getting a preview of this, you'll be able to remotely access our systems, be able to configure cloud-to-cloud integration with some other the major BMS players systems as well. I think some of the more unique opportunities with this is that we are going to create integrations with EPA's Weather Services API. Therefore, people can make informed decisions about what's happening outdoors versus indoors and how to drive control strategies based on the knowledge that you can create the power of the sun indoors with far less energy than is required to heat and cool outdoor air, or to push it through tighter and tighter filters that are MERV 13, 14, 18, and still purify that air inside. So we're going to be announcing that with Rockwell on a press release here in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll have our first products available with them connected around the second week of December. Back to you, Steve.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. And just as a nice little tidbit for us to be able to announce here on the call, we are going to be launching a new range of products in the coming months. So what you're seeing here are replacements for our current models, which are highly industrial, meant to take a bit of abuse. Like we said, we were always in the Jansan space before moving into this kind of arena. And for the purposes of what I think is going to be most relevant to the folks on the call here, the Pyure Flex and Pyure Profile on the bottom. The Flex is wall mountable, so that can be kind of positioned out of the way. If you are dealing with any schools or classrooms, one of the main concerns that we've heard from classrooms is students being able to access the units and switch them on or off. So that can be mounted up out of the way. And then the Profile is a replacement for a ceiling tile. So yeah, even better. And that has, I believe, IR control on it. So anybody who's handling it can only access it with the device, the controller that it's provided with. So when you look at Pyure versus some of the probably more mentioned technologies that are out there, we've kind of lumped these into a couple of categories. So you have HEPA filtration, HEPA and filtration, I should say. You have a range of electronic air cleaners, whether that be ionization or PCO devices, which are photocatalytic oxidation. And then, last but not least, UV. And really what the differentiation is, as you can see with all the red X's, one of the biggest takeaways from these other devices is that they're just point of use. Whether you're using a HEPA filter, you're using any of these other things, they're not introducing sanitizing compounds into the environment. And so you're really just kind of hoping that, if somebody's introducing, just say, COVID into a classroom, that it's going to get sucked through this device before it is able to reach a person. And so that's really how we differentiate. A lot of these are not safe for occupied spaces. They're not doing anything outside the device itself. In a lot of cases, they don't meet the claims that they're making because of how they perform their testing. They don't have third-party validation. It's a kind of the Wild West in the world of air sanitation right now. But we've proven our case over the past 15 years or so with the FDA certification or registration coming through. I want to say 7 years ago. So we're not new to the block. We've been doing this a while, and we definitely stand apart with our scientific data in comparison to the other folks on the market. And now, as far as solutions are concerned, I'm sure everybody here has been catching a lot of the recommendations, and that basically comes to dilution and filtration, right? So there's a couple of problems with that, though. Dilution significantly increases energy consumption. It doesn't inherently reduce viral loads when they're introduced to the space, and it's very contingent on the environment where you're doing it, right? If you're in Houston, Texas in middle of July, you don't want to be pulling 104 degree, highly humid air through your air conditioning system to try and cool the space. You may not actually be able to do that based on the existing system capacity. So, dilution doesn't work in all instances. And then the next step would be to upgrade your filtration. But again, there's an energy penalty to pay there. If you use higher density filter media, your system has to work harder and longer to cool the air to a specified temperature. And so that will, increase your energy costs by 15% or more, while also requiring additional air filter changes, because if it's going to catch more, it's going to clog up earlier. And then, you have to start swapping those out more often. The other piece of this too is that viruses, COVID and more specifically MS2, which is responsible for kind of norovirus, they're smaller than what even a HEPA filter can capture, right? HEPA filters are rated to catch 99.97% of particles that are 300 micron or greater, or 0.3 micron or greater. The virus itself is like 125 nanometer on average, usually smaller than that. So I liken it to trying to catch a grain of sand with a tennis racket, right? If you're trying to catch this, you're going to get some of it. You're going to get lucky. It's going to get tangled up, but ultimately, at the end of the day, filters don't do a particularly good job of capturing viruses. So what are you left with? You can now take both of those things, right? You can increase dilution, you can increase filtration, and upgrade your entire HVAC plant, at significant expense, having much larger air handlers, more energy intensive air handlers, larger ductwork, or higher velocity air, which falls into other problems with OSHA compliance for noise in occupied spaces. The upgrade costs can be prohibitive, even, in the case where federal funding is present, depending on what a allocation is, this may exceed it. So, there's a lot of challenges with implementing the recommendations. So when you compare that versus Pyure, we're not going to increase your energy costs. In fact, depending on how you balance the return air recirc rates, we can actually improve energy reduction. You're going to get the cleansing effect and the sanitizing effect from these hydroxyls hunting down pathogens within the space, and you're going to get, you know, improved air quality overall. So you're addressing all of these problems in one shot with a single, you know, solution. It doesn't, we don't require anything more than kind of the ASHRAE minimums for ventilation for our system to be highly effective at eliminating pathogens and honestly freshening up the entire space. So as I said, we're not new to the block. We've been around a while. We have a number of major clients out there. A number of these are using the 48. So in the case of Toyota and Molson, they're both using the 48 in industrial applications. We have an unlisted data center company that we've been specified with, who are using us throughout the entirety of their administrative buildings for you know, pathogen control. And in the trial that they used us for, they actually had a major problem with COVID being spread throughout the facility until we came in. And after that, there was no additional transmission of COVID from you know, worker to worker once we went in there. So that was a huge win for us. We are aboard a number of cruise ships. Carnival's listed there, but it's also on a few others. We're using it for smoke eradication. So for anybody involved with casinos or other smoking environments, you know, smoking rooms in airports, those types of things, we are very, very effective at eliminating tobacco smoke and odors, even eliminating the haze from the environment. And then so on down the line, we've you know, worked with CAE in the aviation space, Steris in the medical space, and one of the biggest ones at the moment for us is the Newark Board of Education, who specified Pyure throughout the entirety of their school system. So with that, I'll pass back to Brent.
All right, before we get into the wrap up, we do have one more poll question. So a major part of what we wanted to convey, of course, is an overview of the impact that can be achieved with a pure air purification system. So the final question here is, what can a pure air purification system treat? Awesome. Steve, you did a nice job. They got 100% on that one. Okay,
right.
Thanks, guys.
Cookies and stickers for everybody.
So the purpose today was really to introduce our company and our technology and our products. As I said at the beginning, we think there's really a terrific opportunity for all of us to deliver the very best air purification systems to your customers. So next step, we like to have one-on-one meetings really with each of the CGNA members. We'd like to understand any additional questions that you may have. We know that we weren't able to cover everything today, and there's probably more questions that'll come up later. So we want to understand your questions. Obviously for us, we want to learn more about you and your business and your target markets and what this opportunity might look like for you and your region, and what it might take to get access to those opportunities relative to training and support needs and a plan associated with that. And then in the event there's any near-term targets that you're already starting to think about based on what you learned today, start talking about how we can pursue those targets together. And ultimately, we want to go through the details of what a distributor relationship would look like and formalize that with a distributor agreement and the rest of the detail around pricing and so on. So I will take the lead to circle back with each of the participants from the webinar today, along with the other CGNA members, to schedule kickoff meetings and move this process along with each of you individually. With that, that's all we had to cover in terms of presentation material. I think we've got something less than 10 minutes for Q&A. So I'd now like to open it up for discussion.
There you go. Hey, listen, this is Jim again. Harshal is going to turn on or turn off the mute. So if you're at a computer with a microphone, please just state your name and your company and your question. Just speak. You can first name, whatever is fine. What questions do you have? While you're thinking about those, you know what, gentlemen, there's one that I have. I'd like to kick it off with, and that is, what are your plans for the commercial HVAC channel? How many distributors are you planning to add? You got an idea on that?
That's a great question, Jim. Thanks for asking that. And we really value the opportunity to work with CGNA. So our first priority would be to build a network of distribution that covers the geography across North America with CGNA. And if we can accomplish that just with the CGNA network, that'll give us really good access to the market, and we wouldn't plan on adding any additional distribution. Today we have none, but in the spirit of full transparency, there is one distributor that we started talking to a long time ago before the relationship with CGNA. We haven't gotten a distributor agreement in place with that distributor just yet, but that is the one sort of outlier that we may wind up working with over time. But our intent is to work with the CGNA network to cover all of North America.
Okay, well, we'd love to hear that. That's great. That's great. What other questions are out there? Please just speak up. Maybe just mention your first name, your company, or if you'd like to type it in, that's fine too. What's next question, please? We've got a few minutes left here. Anybody?
To all the attendees, if you want to ask a question, please go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Oh,
there you can yep.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Harshal, I didn't mention that. Now, please just unmute your microphone and speak up. You know what? Maybe while they're finding the mic there, Brent, here's a quick one I have, and that is, are you the point person who should they contact if they want to get going right away?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jim. Yeah, I'll be your point of contact, certainly for now. So if you have any questions related to the material we covered today, or you want to get moving quickly with next steps, please reach out to me directly.
Okay. You want to give your email address there real quick?
Sure. My email address is bvick, V-I-C-K, @pyure.com.
That's easy. And Pyure, remember, it's a little unusual spelling, Pyure.com. There you go. Okay. Next question, anyone? Just jump in. It's a quiet group out there. Come on. All right. Anything on your screen? Okay, it looks like someone's trying to. Not sure. Okay. There you go. bvick@pyure.com. Okay. Well, Brent, I'll tell you, to you and the team, Jeremy and Steve, oftentimes no questions means you guys did a very thorough job and answered them all. And actually, that's quite true. You guys covered a lot of ground. So, well, I just don't want to cut anyone off. If you're trying to get your microphone working and want to ask a question, don't want to make it too brief here. Okay. Well, just a last reminder, there are 3 handouts that you can download, 3 PDFs. And for those, if I'm guessing there are some of you today that were on this call going, you know what, other people in our company need to hear this. This has been recorded. This webinar has been recorded, and it will be available on demand. We'll have that out probably Friday. So you can sure get it out to the people that matter in your company. So, well, with that, I think what we'll do is we'll wrap it up. Brent, thank you. I want to please thank Jeremy and Steve as well. Excellent job. And I want to thank all the CGNA attendees that were on the call today. We appreciate your time. We know you're busy. And have a great rest of the afternoon. Brent, thanks for your time, sir.
Jim, thank you. And thanks to your team for helping to coordinate this. Thanks, Harshal.
Thank you, Harshal. This is Harshal Mahangre, is our IT director in our corporate office in California. He made this all possible. Thanks, Harshal. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.